Hi, this is Jens Soering, and I'm the guy who spent 33 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And if that weren't bad enough, 4 years after they let me go out of prison, Netflix put out a series about this case, which really did not tell the truth, in my humble opinion. That's why I'm making a series of videos with different law enforcement officers involved in the case. And today I'm here with FBI Special Agent Stanley Lapekas. This is actually the second part of my series with him. In the first part, speaking with Agent Lapekas, he was telling us about the FBI profile and the FBI file that he found. Now here in the second segment with him, we're going to talk about the media and the politics and also the press conference that was held on April 9th, 2018, which everybody's kind of swept under the rug. So just to introduce him again briefly, here is Special Agent Lapekas, who's going to tell us a little bit about who he is. Pitching to you, Stan.
My name is Stan Lapekas. I'm a retired FBI agent. I was with the FBI for approximately 27 years. After I retired, I worked for the Commonwealth of Virginia in the Charitable Gaming Commission and eventually became the executive secretary. And then following that, a brief stint, I went to work for a major law firm for 18 years as an in-house investigator.
And then in 2018, Sheriff Chip Harding, at that time the active serving sheriff of Albemarle County, approached you to ask you for help on my case in regard to the FBI file and a missing FBI crime scene profile. And of course, you were able, as we learned in part one of this interview, you were able to actually get hold of the FBI file on the Haysom murder case. And you presented that at a press conference on April 9th, 2018, in a meeting room called the City Space in Charlottesville, Virginia. And you were there with Sheriff Chip Harding, Detective Sergeant Richard Hudson, and Senior Investigator Chuck Reed, who was the original lead detective on the Haysom murder case for the first months. And on that occasion, you presented your findings on the case and you presented the FBI file. We're now in 2024 when we're making this video, so this is 6 years ago. Do you remember that occasion?
Yes, I do. Yes. I'm not very comfortable as a public speaker. There's probably more than one reason for that, which I don't want to get into, but my philosophy has always been run silent, run deep. So to get out there and do that and then try to be as gently as I can, but obviously when I did that, I'm questioning the comments that have been made by people in law enforcement in Bedford County, questioning them indirectly or directly. So it's an uncomfortable situation for me, but I did it, and rightfully so. It should have been done because it was just ridiculous when you know all the facts, you're not speculating, and you said, this is what happened, and you determined that there was a profile done without a doubt, and people still deny it. So you're kind of indirectly calling people liars. And when you're in law enforcement, it's uncomfortable to do that.
That's something I want to focus on because that's, I think, a really important point for people to understand what an act of courage that was on your part to present the evidence which made your colleagues in Bedford County Sheriff's Department look bad, frankly.
Correct. Yeah. It's just something you don't want to do, especially when you spend your entire life as an investigator and a major part in law enforcement. You know, you want to leave on a happy note. You want to be able to, even though I don't, go to reunions and meet people. How you doing? So when you step out like that, you actually, people start looking at you like, can we trust this guy? Is he one of us? And so forth, and so on. So
that's something else that I want to pick up on. That's an important thing for people to know, but it goes even further than that, because at this particular press conference, in addition to the FBI file that was released through your work, there was also another document released called Call for Pardon, which you and the original lead detective, senior investigator Chuck Reed, and Detective Sergeant Richard Hudson and Sheriff Chip Harding all signed. It was a one-page document which basically asked the governor of Virginia to grant me an absolute pardon. And I know that this probably has never happened before anywhere, that there are 4 law enforcement officers standing up in public and issuing a call for pardon like that for somebody who's in prison for a really gruesome, horrible crime like the Haysom case. And I figured that must have been extremely uncomfortable on the one hand, but also really important for the 4 of you to do that together. And do you want to talk about that a little bit? How unusual it is and what it meant for you, for the 4 of you to stand up there together and together ask the governor to grant me a pardon?
It's a very uncomfortable situation. No matter how strong you feel about it, just to do it and have somebody captured on camera or video. But there's certain things you have to do. I mean, you just have to do it even if you don't like them, or it makes you uncomfortable. You gotta tell the truth. It's just as simple as that. But it is a struggle to challenge people, not challenge them so much, but to ask them questions about a case.
I would like to ask you, because I asked Chip Harding and Chuck Reed, and unfortunately I cannot ask Richard Hudson because he passed, but I know how he feels because Richard and I actually emailed a lot since my release. I mean, do you think the governor should have granted me a pardon? Do you still stand by that?
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the case and the evidence that was used to convict you, and over the years, everything that's fallen apart, of course, they didn't have DNA or anything back then. You have to say to yourself, how could you be convicted of the actual crime itself, the physical part of it, and based upon the evidence that we know now? Now, you can say to yourself, well, they didn't know it at the time that it was faulty, okay? I believe that when they decided to bury the profile, for me, that's when the game changed. Because you say to yourself, why would you do this when you know that you're not being truthful? What else have you not been truthful with? You have to ask the question, okay? So that's where you go with a deal like that. But the governor, in my opinion, should have given you a pardon. There's no way, based upon my experience, that given what we know now, that you could be convicted in a jury trial if you had a good attorney and the whole deal. It just doesn't make any sense.
That's an important point, right? Which Chuck and Chip, and then at the conference also Richard said, if the trial were held today with the evidence we know today, that I would not be convicted again. But of course, there's no legal way to make that happen because of the 21 problems with Virginia law. So the only recourse is a pardon from the governor, right. Which, bad for me because I didn't get one. In the program notes, video notes for this video, I'm going to link up the press conference because there's a video, the entire press conference that's online. And one of the things that I find absolutely bizarre is that this whole subject, right, of the press conference where the FBI file was revealed and 4, really, senior respected law enforcement officers together asked the governor to grant me a pardon. This has been completely buried in the news and in the reporting on this case since 2018. It was not taken into the Netflix series at all. There's no mention at all of the FBI profile in the Netflix series. And there's been a German documentary here in Germany, which, they've actually, and we'll talk about this in just a second, they've accused me of manipulating the FBI documents and cutting them up and stuff like that. Really crazy stuff, which I'll ask you about in a second. But don't you think it's strange? And what do you think is the reason for that? That this event in 2018, this press conference, is kind of like being buried under the rug and swept away, hidden.
Well, I can't say for certain, but I can address at least one aspect of it. Politically, your case is a hot football, okay? I've mentioned to you before that the politics involved in a case like this not only go from the sheriff's department, they go to the state representatives, congressmen, senators, whatever, and it goes to the governor's office. Everybody in the political field, they depend on each other. So let's say, as an example, the sheriff calls Chip Harding. Chip Harding was an elected sheriff. and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" It's more along the lines that not that you're wrong, but you're making it uncomfortable for me, and I need to get reelected. Well, specifically in your case, and I think I don't know all the details, but I think it happened where somebody in the sheriff's department got a hold of a politician and said, "Hey, get this guy off our back, Chip Hardy." Okay. And the person that is requested to contact Chip, he knows absolutely nothing about the physical evidence or anything about the case other than the fact that you were convicted. Okay. And that somebody is asking him to intercede and contact Chip Hardy. And so that's how, normal people would say, well, what's the case all about? And what did he do? And did he do it? And are there any problems? But they don't even think about that. They just go to Chip Hardy. Exactly what they said, I don't know, but hey, what are you doing? So it's a political playback. And you, like in your case, you're immaterial to the whole issue. At that point, they're talking about re-election. They're talking about political support. So when you get to the level that you had gotten in your case, where people have to go out in front of the public, whether it's the governor or whatever, and say, "Hey, we're going to do it," they're going to take a lot of heat because there's people out there, no matter what the evidence is, are not going to get off the dime on the fact that we're not going to change the conviction. It's got to stay the way it is, which is really sad. I'm not a bleeding heart, trust me, but it's hard to imagine that somebody could spend, in your case, 35 years in prison. 35 years.
I just want to briefly interject there. It was actually just 33 years, not 35.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't that bad.
Well, go ahead, tack on a few more. Hey, doesn't make any difference. 33, 35, that's a long time.
And the other thing is that, of course, they tried for 3 years to execute me.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
That's why I was over in England, because Jim Updike, would not drop the death penalty charges, and he was desperate to put me in the electric chair. So the overview is, stepping back a little bit, do you think that the reason why I was only released on parole without a pardon, and with your experience as the executive secretary of the Gaming Commission and other, decades with the FBI, do you think that politics influenced the governor's decision to release me only on parole and without an acknowledgement that I was innocent?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It finally got to the point, I believe, where the pressure from, let's say, your side got to the point where they decided they had to make a decision. And what can we do and still come out holding our head up high? Okay. And that would also eliminate any civil penalties against the state, monetary wise, keep everybody happy. Okay.
That's something I talk about as well here in Germany. If they had granted me a pardon, I could have applied. I wouldn't have been entitled, but I could have applied for $1.4 million compensation. And no politician wants to be responsible for that.
Correct. It just adds more to the story and an awareness where the public go, what's this all about? Why is this guy getting $1.4 million? Did he do it? So it just gets all jumbled up again. In my opinion, that was probably the easiest way out. But politics plays a big role, for sure. No doubt about it. Did anybody come to you and say, we're sorry we made a mistake? They'll never do it.
In my case, Stan, and in so many other cases here in Virginia, they won't even admit it, right?
Well, correct.
They released me on parole. They released me on parole, like you said earlier in the previous interview, without a pardon.
And again, maybe I'm dreaming something up here, but and I know there's restrictions and liability and all this other stuff, and we can't admit this, and this is only how far we can go. But that's the kind of person I am. I'm thinking, Jesus, it would be nice if somebody locked me up for a long time and I was innocent and they made a mistake it would be nice for them to say, hey, we made a mistake, you know?
Thank you for saying that, because you know what? If they were to say that to me, just say that to me, you know, we made a mistake, we're sorry, I would immediately sign a piece of paper that I do not need any compensation. Keep your money. I don't want the compensation, but just say, we're sorry this happened, it was a mistake. And I'll sign away all my financial rights, right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to do it.
No. And legally, I don't know if they could do it, but you get my point, you know, that you give that part of your life and you've been abused by the system. It's a crazy deal. You know, you get, let's say, career criminals. They get locked up and convicted, and the evidence is really flimsy, okay? But the excuse will be, hey, he deserves it. He's done all this other stuff, so this is okay. We can do this to him. Justice is I mean, I'd like to say it's the best system in the world, but sometimes it's just, there's too many factors that influence the outcome of a trial. And a lot of those are political. And in your case, it was evident that that's what happened.
And now for a brief commercial interruption. I fought for justice for 33 years while I was in prison, and I'm still fighting for justice today, after my release, through these videos and through a new pardon petition. There's a method to my madness. In prison, I developed a 7-step program for developing fighting spirit so that I would never, ever, ever give up. Today, I work as a coach, and I teach my clients how to develop that fighting spirit as well. Most of my clients come to me because of issues like career development, toxic relationships, libel, or defamation. But of course, I adapt my program to whatever my clients' needs are. If you're interested in working with me as a coach, please go to my website. I'll check you out there.
Here in Germany, one of the strangest things that I'm just really puzzled by this, I have been accused of manipulating the FBI documents, removing this woman's name in order to draw attention to Elizabeth. That's what I'm being accused of, that I changed the FBI documents and I cut them up and rearranged them. And I just want to check in with you about this. When you were given the FBI file, right, under the Freedom of Information Act that you filed, the FBI removed all those names, didn't they?
Yeah, they redact it. They take names out and so forth. Yeah.
And that's to protect the innocent, right?
Yeah, that's just policy. They redact everything.
The thing that I'm being accused of doing is cutting out this woman's name who was cleared as a suspect. And and that's FBI policy, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, that's ridiculous to somebody accuse you. That's the way it's done.
And then when the FBI released those documents with those names removed, we had that letter from the prosecutor's office that you were mentioning earlier, and we blacked out the name in that as well for the same reason, to protect somebody who had been cleared. She was not involved in the case.
Correct.
And this is also, you know, I'm supposedly blacking out names to make it look like Elizabeth did it, whereas all we were doing is the same thing that the FBI was doing, protecting innocent people.
Correct. Right. Yeah. That's the way it's done. So anyways, to answer your question specifically, the documents that I was able to retrieve from the FBI, all those redactions were done by the FBI. Nobody touched them. That's how it's done.
And then the next question is, I've been accused in Germany of paying all of you people over there, bribing you to lie for me. When I'm not bribing you, I've been accused of being the leader of a personality cult. So I would like to ask you, have I hypnotized you at any stage? and did you get the money I sent you? That's the other thing. Did you finally get the money I sent you?
Yeah, we did. And I went to a casino and I lost the lion's share of it. No, that's ridiculous.
Well, they take it seriously here in Germany. And, you know, I believe that I went around, bribed scientists, and I think I also blinded law enforcement officers, and y'all have been hypnotized by me. But the two of us, because I'm a leader of a personality cult, they say.
Yeah.
And I'm manipulating everybody. We have never even talked before today, right?
That's
because
correct.
You intentionally did not come to visit me so that you could be completely objective, right?
Absolutely. I had no reason to meet you. What do I need to do that? I don't care. I mean, the bottom line is stand, look at this evidence, or see if you can find this document. That's it. I don't want to be influenced by the person that's, in your case, making the complaint.
Look, having cleared up the points about the press conference and how politics were involved at every stage of the case, and then also the question whether I manipulated documents, I think this is a good place to finish the second video in our series. And then in the third video, I'd like to talk to you about the sock print, because at that press conference, you also had something to say about the sock print. And I think folks would like to hear what a retired FBI special agent with 27 years experience thinks about sock prints at the crime scene. I'll see you then, Stan. Thank you.
You know.